everybody, welcome to another video. On this one we're going to talk about drawing an apple, and I wanted to make it a little different. I wanted to add a little story, turn our apple into a character. I didn't want to just do a simple apple rendering, boring apple. I want to do something cool. So um, when you're trying to turn anything really into add a story to something, a character or whatever, you need to answer some questions like who is our, in this case, our apple. What's our apple's name? What happened to him? Where is he? Why is he what he is? So I decided to turn our apple into a zombie. So our apple's name is Alan, and we're making him a zombie, and I thought it would be cool to have him eaten by infected worms that maybe had some kind of a virus and ate the apple, infected the apple, and kind of rotted him out and turned him into this zombie character that we're drawing here. And with anything you do in terms of, you could take an apple, an orange, whatever. You could, turn a tree into a character, whatever you want. You need to answer just the basic questions. You know, who, what, where, and why. Answer those, and then you'll have a very basic sort of structure to sort of build upon and build a cool story. So that's what we did here. And basically what I do is I do a very loose sketch, and then I'll do an overlay on top of that sketch, and then start putting in the details, getting a little tighter as I go, as I'm doing right now. And it's a constant push and pull process of refining and adjusting and erasing the little mistakes that you make or imperfections. Sometimes the imperfections, the happy accidents can, you actually want to keep because, um, it takes your drawing into a new direction. So that could be kind of cool too. So I'm just refining right now, and I'm getting into putting in our infected worms that have eaten our apple out, and putting him in a little environment. It's like a little spot illustration, really. And cool thing about working in Photoshop is you can, you've got the layers, you've got the undos, you can erase, you can do, all these different things. So it's pretty cool. And black and white, again, it's push and pull, light and dark. And but once we get our base drawing down, I'll start putting in some tones, and kind of adjusting the worms here because I want them to be, really just kind of coming out of a certain kind of that left area of his body there. Yeah, just kind of the refined process. And this is a really cool exercise. You guys out there, when you're creating characters, when you're trying to figure out, certain, your story or whatever, you just have to answer those basic questions. It took me a while to figure that out. I had a mentor that actually, he told me, he said, you know, you just like to draw cool shit, he said. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, well, you're just drawing, you know, your typical monster, but why is the monster the way he is? Or, in our case, our zombie, like what happened to him? What, I was like, oh wow, I never really thought about that. And he was right. I was just drawing cool shit. I wasn't adding any sort of story elements. I wasn't thinking through the process, really, why I was doing it. And subconsciously, like, I knew the type of characters that I wanted to draw, and in my mind I had like, oh, this guy's like this and this guy's like that, but I never really answered the question. So it really helped me out when I was younger when he was telling me this stuff. And so now you can see, I'm going in and I'm popping, the tones, the highlights, and I'm using a pencil brush in Photoshop. It has a nice texture to it, as you can see. And I'm not just coloring it in. I'm thinking about the form and how I want to sculpt him out, so to speak. Um, and you could see the gray background gives a nice sort of mid-tone, and that way you could push the darks and pop out the highlights. So that's why, you see artists doing that. Why do you have a gray background or a toned background? It could be tan or gray. Provides a good tone to sort of work from. It helps because sometimes, even when I started to draw, my darks weren't dark enough, my highlights weren't, you know bright enough. um, and I'm putting in shadows here, under the top portion of the apple to sort of add some dimension to it, and then I'm going back in and popping some details. um, and now I'm adding, the color to the top. And it's a constant process of push and pull. What I mean by a push and pull is you pull the highlights out and then you push the darks back. Um, so that's your sort of refinement. You do that in black and white, you do that with color. And I'm just adding some basic tones and popping some highlights, pushing some darks, some shadows. And you'll see here, after I get the bottom portion sort of fleshed out, he he's automatically like just coming to life. And even these mistakes, I'm painting over some of the black pencil marks, the underdrawing that I'm doing. I'm just covering it with the color now. So that's also a refinement as well. So I'm sort of finishing off, the character and refining, and all at the same time. Now I'm adding the shadows on the bottom and sort of the variancy in the apple, the tones. Now the grass. It becomes therapeutic after a while. It's almost like paint by numbers, and I'm filling in the spaces. It's almost like a little coloring book in a way, but it's and then as the painting progresses, I'm starting to add more tones in the grass as well, and around the worms and things like that. And again, the cool part about Photoshop is you can always just paint right on top, just like this. And some of that messiness, some of that, sketchy um, underdrawing. Sometimes I want to keep some of that stuff. I like, kind of that rawness that it has. I never like my stuff to look so refined. I mean, sometimes I do if it's for a client or whatever, but um, I mean, for something fun like this, I mean, this could be a T-shirt. This could be a short story that you write. Maybe you want to create a character like this, and let's say you do a character every 2 days, let's say, or even every day, right? And you add a cool story to it, and you can compile them all together. You can create a little book. You could have one spot illustration or one illustration, and then story, and then so on and so forth. Maybe do a collection of like 10 or 20. Put a book together. Pick a theme. It's the cool part about this stuff is that it's just never ending ideas. And when you have this sort of um, basic understanding of how to answer these questions, who, what, where, and why, with anything. I want to turn this whatever. I want to turn this tree into a character, this apple into a character. You could make a you can do a whole society of fruits fighting vegetables. Like it could be a Pixar story, right? they'll pick that up. They love that stuff. They love anything animals, anything, let's just make them into characters. Give them a rivalry and watch them go. And see, right now I'm refining the pencil sketch, right? Because I painted over some of that with the color with the worms, but of course the black is kind of fading out. It's loose, so I'm going back over it and I'm defining the shape a little bit, darkening up the edges, cleaning it up. Well, I painted over this with the grass. I got to fix that later, but um, and then you could see it just becomes more finished. There we go. I'm fixing this, and it becomes more of a finished piece. And I can go back in and add shadows in the worms if I want later, but I don't think it's really necessary at this point. Um, it's looking pretty cool so far. And our title, Rotten to the Core. And that's it. And there's our finished illustration. I hope you like this video. Thank you for watching till the end, and please like and subscribe and stay tuned for more content, guys. Thank you.